What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy, the man welding. It's been a long time since I sat down in front of the camera and made a video, but it's long overdue for this one, guys. Today is January 20th, 2025, and as of the 1st of this year, I am 2 years sober. So that's cool, man, and I wanted to jump on here and make a video about it. So, I don't even know where to begin. There's a lot that I want to say. So, I want to start by saying that if you're somebody who has a problem with drinking or doing drugs, or maybe you don't have a problem, but you still choose to do these things sometimes, and you have considered stopping, or if you're actively trying to get sober, but you find that you keep failing in your attempts, the one thing that I'll say is that it does in fact get easier with time. Now, that doesn't mean that time is the determining factor in you getting sober and staying sober. It doesn't mean that just because you got a couple years under your belt doesn't mean that you won't be faced with moments of weakness and temptation and thoughts of fuck it, and thoughts of, oh, a drink would be good right now, and you might be walking around and get a whiff of somebody smoking weed and think to yourself, that smells good, I'd like to smoke some weed, and it would be very easy for me to go get some. Or driving past the liquor store and just think to yourself, I could swing in there and grab a bottle and pour a drink, and there's really no reason why I couldn't, and nobody could stop me. And those things are still very possible and very real. But the fact is, and I'm just speaking from my own experiences, right? But early on in my attempt to get sober, I spent a lot more mental energy thinking about it and trying to convince myself why I should do it and why I shouldn't relapse. And it just took up a lot more of my thoughts and my energy, as opposed to now, 2 years later, I don't really give it much thought at all. It's just become how I live my life. It's become part of who I am, and it's something that I take pride in, and that's the fact that I don't drink, and I don't smoke weed, and I don't use drugs. And it's just, as time has gone on, it's become a lot easier for me to say no. And something that I've experienced, and that I'm sure you guys will experience too, is that there is going to be some pushback from certain people. People that you might have been friends with for a long time, who you used to get drunk and high with all the time, and now when you go and hang out with them, they are going to want you to partake in the drinking and the smoking and the use of drugs. And they will take it personally, and they will feel some type of way about you simply declining to indulge in those types of things. And that's all right. And that's something that you're going to have to learn how to handle. Now, me, I just say no. Like, I don't do that shit, I don't feel like I really owe anybody an explanation as to why. It's just a personal decision, and people will either respect it or they won't. And if they won't, well, that says more about them than it does about you. So at that point, you just need to recognize it and go from there. Another thing that I've noticed is that when you tell people who have known you for a long time, or maybe people that you have known for a short amount of time, that you don't drink, they will often inquire as to why that is. And typically they're going to assume it's because you have a problem with alcohol. Now, maybe for a lot of people that's true. For me, it's kind of a gray area, right? It's like I did feel like I had a problem and that it would be best for me to stop drinking, but like I've said before, and I mean this, I've never considered myself an alcoholic. Now, maybe that's me just kind of coping with my own problems, but that's really how I feel about it. Like, I don't feel like I was an alcoholic. I just felt like I had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And on top of that, I am a pretty realistic, pragmatic type of person. And I've witnessed the detrimental effects alcohol has had not only on myself, but on other people in my life. And I can recognize that and, you know, come to the conclusion that I'd probably be better off without it. And so the cool thing about that is when people ask you why you don't drink, it's one of those things, right? Like for me, depending on the situation, I might tell them briefly, like, well, it's just, you know, I say, oh, maybe we can talk about it later in a more like one-on-one type of environment. Like, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer at the bar or at a party or at a social event. Like, and I don't want to start telling everybody about how bad alcohol is for you. Everybody knows. And, you know, typically when they ask, I don't think they're asking from a bad place or anything like that, but I don't think they're ready to hear what you have to say in that moment. So what I've done in a couple situations is I just keep it really short and simple. I just be like, well, I just don't drink anymore, like whatever. And then if they want me to elaborate, I'll simply say, okay, well, I'd love to tell you about it, but maybe now is not really the time or place. So, you know, if we get a chance to kind of have a conversation one-on-one, I'll be happy to tell you about it. And then when I do so, I can think of one specific example where I was in Tampa for a work trip and I met a guy who was from somewhere else, and myself and my coworkers and him and one or two other people, you know, we went out to dinner and everyone was drinking and I wasn't drinking, and he was, you know, basically asking me about it. And he kind of implied that he had considered stopping drinking and saying, oh, I don't really drink as much as I used to, and I don't really, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end of the night, you know, everyone had gotten pretty drunk. He was still, he had his wits about him. You know, he didn't go crazy or anything like that. He had a couple drinks, but he was still fairly sober, I would say. And I was like, hey, bro, if you want to talk about it, you know, come to my hotel room. And he did. And, you know, I sat and just basically explained to him why it is that I don't drink. And I kind of put a positive spin on it. Like, look, you know, I'm trying to reach my potential. I'm trying to be the best that I can be. I'm tired of, you know, living in shame and regret and, you know, making bad decisions when I'm drunk and risking my health and my freedom and, you know, just all these things. And I think the fact that I sat down with him and just spoke to him one-on-one, it really resonated. What I said really resonated with him, and he's, you know, maybe I planted that seed and was, you know, a bit of an inspiration for him to make some changes in his own life, and that would be great. And that's another thing, you know, after you have some significant sobriety under your belt, you can kind of serve as that inspiration to people. And that's a good feeling. You know, I never tell people that I think they should or they should not stop drinking. I mean, if somebody I care about asks me what I think they should do, I'll be more than happy to tell them. And just on a general basis, I'm not really going to encourage anyone to go out there and continue drinking. But at the same time, I understand that when you're young and you're having fun, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but far too often it just gets out of hand and lands people in hot water. So that being said, though, people are free to make their own decisions, right? And I'm not a proselytizing type of person, right? I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, but if you ask me what I think you should do, I'm going to tell you the truth. And you know, I'll just be honest, like even reading the comments in the video I made when I reached 1 year sober, it was powerful to see how videos like that really help people. And you know, it's a good feeling. So if you can be a force for positive change in the world, then that's absolutely a good thing, and it's worth doing. And that's why I feel the need to get on here and make a video. I'll be honest, guys, I have really had to step out of my comfort zone to start a YouTube channel, especially on these style videos where I just throw a camera up, sit in front of it, and just ramble my thoughts. You know, it's not something I feel very comfortable doing, but it's something I've kind of forced myself to do, and I view it almost like exposure therapy, right? Whereas the more you do it, the less big of a deal it seems to be, to where hopefully after I make 30, 40, 50, 100 of these videos, it just feels completely normal and I don't have any apprehension, and I can speak confidently and fluently, and you know, and just put good quality content out there for people to consume. And that's something else I want to touch on, right, is stepping out of your comfort zone and relate that to not drinking. And that's a big one that I've noticed, especially in this last year, is that I have been in quite a lot of different situations where alcohol consumption is prevalent. And, you know, so for example, I've been on a cruise. I took a cruise to Alaska with my wife, and on cruises, these are a place where people drink basically all day, every day. And there is a lot of temptation, and I don't want to say pressure, but there is a lot of temptation to drink alcohol on a cruise. And I think people find themselves in situations where they want to start justifying it, like, oh, well, I'm on vacation and I've been good, and this, you know, it's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of mindset. And I have had to be careful when entering into these situations to not allow myself to slip up and make these mistakes, because I know from past experiences that it's not as easy as, you know, you have some sobriety and then you go on a vacation and you have some drinks and then you return to normal life and you're right back on the wagon. In my experience, typically that's not what happens. Typically is if you allow yourself to slip, it's going to spiral out of control. And to what extent that happens, you know, that's based on the individual. But for me, I've had it happen more than a couple times to where I had a little bit of sobriety under my belt, and, you know, I found myself in a situation where I allowed myself a few drinks for whatever reason, and next thing you know, I've continued to drink and use drugs for months and months, if not years after that. So what I have learned is that there's a saying out there, and I think it's true, and that is, one is too many, but 100's not enough. So think about that next time you consider giving yourself a pass on certain situations. But anyways, back to my point about stepping out of your comfort zone. So being on a cruise, you know, there's a lot of like dancing, and there's, you know, they'll have games where the host interacts with the crowd, and, you know, there's karaoke, and there's comedy clubs, and there's all these types of things where what I have seen is that people, you know, it's not uncommon. I think everyone's heard the term social lubricant, right? Like alcohol kind of loosens people up in social events. And I used to believe that that was very true. And to an extent, I think it is true, right? Because alcohol lowers people's inhibitions, and it can kind of help you shake off some of that social anxiety. But what I have come to realize since I've stopped drinking is that most people just hold themselves back, right? They almost trick themselves into thinking that's true when it's really not true. Like just recently, a couple weeks ago, myself and a couple of people, we went on a pirate-themed booze cruise for a couple of hours. And so I think you guys know what that is, right? You get on a boat that's like a pirate ship, and there's a bar there, and there's a couple of people who work for the company who are like pirates, and, you know, they encourage everyone to drink and have fun. And I wasn't drinking, right? And was there a little bit of temptation? Yeah, there was, you know, but at the same time, I just told myself, fuck that, I don't drink. And I went on to just let loose. I was dancing, I was jumping around, I was joking with people, I was interacting with the crowd, and I was probably the most outgoing person on that entire ship. And I was probably one, if not one of few people on that boat who weren't drunk or drinking. And that just kind of makes me realize that it's not the alcohol that is loosening people up, it's just feeling confident in who you are as a person. So you know, if you're somebody who you feel like you need alcohol to let loose and party and have fun, my opinion is it's less about the alcohol and it's more about your insecurities as a person. So if you're not able to let loose and have fun without alcohol, then I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you possibly have some insecurities that you need to work on. And, you know, just the other night too, I was out at a bar in Tampa, and same thing. It's like, I don't have any problem contributing to the conversation, or, you know, I don't feel out of place at all. And I have not, I know I'm all over the place, guys, but you just got to bear with me, right? Is you see people go from sober to drunk, and I can recognize this in myself looking back on a lot of like previous events in my lifetime, and I just cringe to think how people must have viewed me after I got drunk and sloppy. And it's like, it's embarrassing. You know, I look back on some of my behaviors at social events and I just cringe to think what I must have looked like and sounded like, because now I can see it from a different perspective, right? Whereas I'm the sober one and I'm going out with people and watching them get progressively more inebriated, and, you know, it's not always a pretty sight. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but when it becomes obvious that somebody has drank a little bit too much and they just kind of get that look in their eye and they're less inhibited by other people's opinions, you know, it's not the best look. And it's something that that makes me very proud and happy that I don't indulge in that type of stuff anymore, and that I'm not going to embarrass myself or jeopardize myself or jeopardize the people around me through clouded judgment. All right, so, and that's another thing, you guys have heard me mention this video a few times, is that I have been out at bars. I go to bars with people who I'm friends with. You know, I don't have any reservations about going to an event where drinking is going to be there, where drinking is the main focus. It's not something I worry about. Now, people in early sobriety, you know, that can be a very potentially dangerous situation in terms of, you know, it's like me. Okay, so I'll use myself as an example on this one. When it comes to having sweets in the house, like chocolate or ice cream or something like that, I know that if it's there, despite how much I tell myself I shouldn't be eating it, I'm gonna eat it. Like, my willpower is just not that strong. So if I want to be successful and not overindulging in sweets, then my best course of action is to not have them available to me. And the same goes for people in early sobriety and drinking, right? Like, if you know that you're still tempted by alcohol, then you should probably not go to a bar. But I'm speaking from a position of having 2 years of sobriety. And now I don't have any reservations about going to bars. I don't avoid social events where alcohol is going to be present. And it's just something that, you know, I don't let alcohol affect me in that way. Like, there are small moments of temptation, but every time you feel tempted by something and you're able to not indulge in that temptation, you're just building internal fortitude and resilience and a stronger foundation in your desire to be sober. So if anything, I kind of view those opportunities as a good thing and not a challenge or something that's bad. Oh, man. So, having said all that, a few other things I want to say is just that quitting drinking and quitting smoking weed and not doing drugs is not a magical cure to all your problems in life. It's really not. It's tremendous in the fact that you're no longer sabotaging yourself. You know, you're not fucking up your sleep. You're not, you know, stealing your dopamine from your future self by trying to enjoy yourself in the present. When it comes to smoking, because when I say sobriety, I'm not just talking about alcohol. I'm talking about weed too. I cringe to think how much damage I've done to my lungs and my respiratory system and my heart health by all the fucking shit I smoked and dabbed and vaped and, you know, but I can't undo that damage. All I can do is not continue to make it worse moving forward. So not only have I stopped sabotaging my health, but, and quitting alcohol is not a cure-all for your problems in life, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. What I will say though, in the last 2 years since I've quit smoking and quit drinking, my life has progressed so tremendously. I've had so many great things happen on a personal level and a professional level that I am going to discuss in other videos, but just know that my growth as an individual, you know, basically every aspect of my life has gotten better. And it's not solely due to the fact that I'm sober and I don't drink and I don't do drugs, but I think that has been a key component in all the positive change that's happened. So to wrap things up, guys, I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you for watching. If you're somebody who has considered getting sober, I'm going to tell you to go ahead and do it. You know, take it seriously. Just take it one day at a time. And trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's not because I was some, you know, worst of the worst type of drug user or drinker, but I just want you to know that, you know, if you have that thought in the back of your head that life might be better if you cut certain things out, let me be the one to tell you that you're not wrong and that you should pursue that fiercely and just see what happens, you know? So it's been great to get on here and make a video. I'm gonna wrap it up. It's getting a little long, but thank you guys for watching. Take care. Peace out.